Hey, this is Soma79 with a special announcement. My new Mega Mix is up. My MF Doom Mega Mix, Oxidation Moons Day, is now available. Go to www.soma79.com/doom to check it out. It's a 30-minute mix that I did of MF Doom raps over my own beats. I really enjoy it. I hope you really enjoy it. So check it out. Tell a friend. Peace. Hey, welcome to the 51st episode of the Articulate Ox podcast. I am your host, Soma79. Thank you so much for joining me today. My guest today is Bay Area tattoo artist Androidoh. I met up with Androidoh through previous guest Garfield from Memory, who shared up a bunch of tattoos that Androidoh did of Garfield. He did these really cool, they're like little kid drawings. You'll see, there's a bunch of them to show during the episode. We talk about it, but I actually had some original little kid drawings that I did Garfield when I was a kid. So I sent it to him out in California. He sort of redesigned it for me, cleaned it up, sent it back to me, and I had an artist in Atlanta tattoo it on me for me. So he did a really beautiful job. I'm glad I had him do it rather than somebody else try to mimic the style. I tried myself, failed miserably. Sometimes got to outsource the stuff to the experts. This dude's the expert. So thank you so much, Androidoh. Check out his stuff. All of his information is here on the episode and the show notes. Go get a tattoo from him in the area. Check out his art, follow him, all that good stuff. It is, this is our Christmas episode, I guess. Even though we don't really talk much about Christmas, you can tell I'm here celebrating. I got my Christmas nail polish on. I'm enjoying my alcohol-free Heineken, so salut. Hope everybody has something to celebrate. Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, all that good stuff. See, this is how much I don't drink. I'm already spilling. But oh well. Thank you everybody who participated this year in the Articulate Ox podcast. I can't believe that I actually did an episode for every week of the year, as I said I would. I know there's still one more coming out, but a little industry secret, it's already in the can, it's already done, so we're all good with that. But this has been a very fun year, and I'm very excited to do this again next year and have a bunch of new guests on, bring some people back, try some new things. I have some different ideas of things I'm going to do. Also, finally making some progress on my film, Drinking Songs for Children. But I'm thinking that next week's episode, the last episode, I'm going to do a little extra talk, a little extra thing at the beginning where I talk about my goals for next year and just the year and recap and all that good stuff. So look forward to that, or look forward to skipping over that. All good. Subscribe down there at the bottom on YouTube or whatever podcast app you're listening to. And thank you so much for joining us. Make sure you follow Androidoh and follow the podcast and follow me at Soma79 on Instagram. And check out my new album, Quiet Life, Loud Friends with Pillsy Beats, available everywhere. We have some more music coming in 2024 with some great features and new albums and all this good stuff. So thank you, everybody, and Merry Christmas. Peace.
And with wings clipped, quick to flip manuscripts, cause her man went from damaged kid to damn he's rich. But she still can't stand the way he manages to never put nickels in the can for the cancer kids. Plus he cheats at cornhole and brags that he won, so she lost interest like porno after she comes. My DM started jingling, baby, as it was done. 2 seconds later I can hear the snapping of her gums. She calls me half Dodge Challenger, half Lip Gallagher.
Yeah.
All right. Welcome to the 51st episode of the Articulate Ox podcast. I am your host, Soma79. My guest today is tattoo artist from the Bay Area, Androidoh. How you doing today?
Hey, Soma, how's it going, man? Good to meet you.
Did I say that right?
Yeah, Androidoh.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I sort of asked you that before we were recording.
It's all good, man. I know it's a weird name, but
No, I did,
actually,
man.
well, the story behind it. So when I was a kid, I was like in a lot of different daycares, and so there were multiple Andrews. So some of them would call me Droid or Android, and so I took that, and then in some kind of state of trying to not be associated with the phone, I was like, I need to make a name that's original and unique. So my full name is Andrew John Rieger, and there's 18 letters in my name. So divided by 2, I get to the exact center of my name. The 2 letters in the even numbered name is the O and H of John. So I took that O and H and added it to the end of Android to make Androidoh.
Dude, you think the way I think. Like, I've always been kind of obsessed with the fact that my first and last name have the same digits, Timothy Johnson. But
Yep.
speaking of names, I recently had something happen to me where I'm 44 years old, and this is something that I wish somebody pointed out to me, like when I was 4 years old, that Moth
Yep.
would be a perfectly acceptable like short like nickname for Timothy. And I'm like, if I was going by Moth Johnson my whole life, I would be an entirely different person. It would sound weird at first, but people get used to that shit real fast. And
Hell
it'd be like,
yeah.
oh
And
yeah, Moth Johnson's coming over. I'm still, is it too late? I don't know. I mentioned it a bunch in this.
it's never too late, dude. Yeah. Yeah, rebrand. Fuck it. That's awesome. Moth, single syllable. That's the one downside to Androidos is 3 syllables. So it's just
Yeah.
like it's a little too much, but fuck it, I'm sticking to it.
Yeah, yeah. Well, going by Tim sucks for me because you're always going Tim, Jim. No, Tim. That's my entire life. I've been doing that. I mean, the cross-eyed bear. Like these are like the problems I have. So,
Right, exactly.
so yeah, cool name, man. So the way we hooked up is that I think it was through Garfield Through Memory, which is the page that I interviewed her. No, is it Garfield? I forget the exact name. Garfield from Memory. Yes.
From memory. Yep.
Yep. So I believe she shares a lot of different Garfield art. I'm a huge Garfield fan back in the day. And I saw, I believe, a flash page you did of these like Garfield drawings that were kind of scribbled in.
Yep.
And I'll put some pictures in the screen. I have one here, but it's going to be tough for me to show it because of where it is. But
Sure.
the I had always been a huge Garfield fan and I wanted to get a tattoo. And I was going through some old notebooks of mine. And the way that I learned how to draw was through one particular page in a Garfield book where it showed you the 3 steps or 6 steps of how to draw Garfield. And that's how I drew that over and over again. And I found an old one and I saw that style. I'm like, this matches up perfectly. So I reached out to you and be like, could you design this for me? And you were nice enough to do it. And it's beautiful. I was down at unfortunately because we're so far away, I couldn't have you do it. But I was down in Atlanta and I found somebody who was able to do it, and made an excellent job. So thank you so much, man.
Awesome. Yeah, I love to hear that, dude. I'm always down. It's something about what I do with all that stuff. It's a variations on the theme of bootlegging art. So I don't take any real credit to anything other than just putting my perspective on something. So
Yeah.
when people want it and like somebody else does it, I'm like, fuck yeah, go do it. Like, who cares? It's like it's all just art. I just want to share it with people. So
I was really happy that you did it instead because I'm an artist as well, and there was a part of me going, the exact drawing I had needed some work because it was 30 something years old and it was done in the notebook and I needed someone to clean it up. And the
Sure.
little decisions that you made to clean it up, I was like, perfect. I was just
Uh,
because I tried it myself first and I couldn't find that right balance of looking artistically sloppy versus really sloppy. And like you
Totally.
nailed it. Like
Awesome.
area around the eye. So anybody hit him up, pay for some designs, get some tattoos. It's great stuff.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I appreciate you. Yeah.
You want to mention actually up front where we're gonna have your social media here, but is there a particular studio you work at or anything like that, or anything you feel like shouting out?
Yeah, I work at Black and Blue Tattoo in San Francisco, California. We were previously at the location 381 Guerrero Street, and as of 2 weeks ago, we moved to 329 22nd Street. So we're there, but we're kind of hard to find as of right now. So if you hit us up, just look up Black and Blue Tattoo or hit up my Instagram, and I'll direct you to come by and get a tattoo.
Awesome. Awesome. You
Yeah.
know what's kind of what I found about tattoos is interesting is whenever I go to get a tattoo, the answer is I can either do it right now or 8 months. Like
Really?
it never seems to be anything in between. It's either like, oh yeah, well, sit down, or yeah, my book's open in like 4 months. So I don't know. But I always find the quality, and I don't really have any tattoos I'm not happy with. The qualities are always excellent, so who knows? But
Absolutely. No, that's awesome.
so how'd you get into it?
Well, I would say right around, I've always made art, and around 19, I went to a smoke shop and they had some tattoo machines you could buy. So I went and bought a shading machine and tried to draw lines with a shading machine on my own thigh and just messing around and messing up people and, just a couple of my friends really, but never like charging for it. And I always thought it was something I wanted to do, but I guess I should preface I was born and raised in San Jose, California. So it's about an hour south of San Francisco. It's the Silicon Valley. It's, so I was raised like, you got to go to college and, get your degree and get in tech or something if you want to make a living here. And so I kind of like gave up the concept of like, oh, I'm going to make art for a living because I'd make paintings, an 11 by 17 acrylic painting, try to sell it for 200 bucks, couldn't sell it for shit.
Yeah.
So I
I've
was
been
just
there.
right.
Yeah.
So I just let that idea go and just kept it as sort of a hobby. And, I chased all different types of jobs and, everything from teaching little kids how to swim to construction work to flipping burgers to, the last job I had before I started tattooing, I was working in tech. I had worked from like a entry level assembler into a project manager position without a degree.
Wow.
And by the time I was 30, I was like, I'm fucking sick of this. This job sucks. I hate it. Like there's just,
Yeah.
a salary jobs, man, it's not, it just sucks everything out of you. And I wasn't making anything. And
Yeah.
I decided to say, fuck it. Let's see. I would rather be happy doing something that I would enjoy doing and not be making that much money than be miserable and financially stable. So while I was working at this tech job, I was looking around for an apprenticeship. And basically what that looked like for me was I had stickers and like some prints, like I was making paintings and stuff. And I would go to tattoo artists who I thought had a style that I resonated with, and I would pay for the tattoo and I would drop off some art with them and I would try to connect with them and say, hey, I really want to learn how to tattoo. If that's something you'd be willing to try to teach me. And a lot of people said, fuck off. A lot of people said, sure, but you're going to work the front counter for 2 years for free before you start setting up stations and watching people tattoo. And, I'm 30 living in the Bay Area. I'm like, that's not going to work. Like I gotta make money. Uh, so finally found who became my mentor. They started tattooing my knee and they did it's who tattooed you. And they were working at Black and Blue at the time, and they got the outline and the shading done on my knee. I had to come back in a month once it was all healed up to get the color. And in that time I got laid off from the tech job.
Uh,
So I came back a month later and he said, hey, if you are down and you're able to give me 110% of your time, you can be here. And so the stars aligned. And at 30 years old, I started an apprenticeship,
that's awesome.
learning how to tattoo. And it worked out good. It was basically, I made a monthly payment for a year to my mentor. And then I did construction projects around the shop for the owner. So I was able to give back without wasting, a bunch of time not making money kind of.
Right. That's that
And I was
benefit of having all those skills. Like that shit
yeah,
pays off all the time.
yeah, absolutely. Yeah. You're not completely worthless,
Yeah, yeah. It's like
Uh,
having an acting resume that says you're bilingual. You're gonna get more jobs. It's kind of just like
right.
one of those things where it's like having special skills makes a big deal.
Yeah, absolutely. So it was good, man. It was great. I'd say 2 months into it, I was able to like, I was confident enough to start taking walk-ins. And it was one of those things where it's like, just throw your ass in the water, or you're either gonna sink or swim. And so I just figured it out, and it's been nonstop since. Tattooing is scary. It's not one of those things where it's a guaranteed hourly job, and
Yeah,
there's no guarantees. And so sometimes, it's a little rough, and sometimes it's really great. And somehow I've been able to survive in the San Francisco Bay Area off of tattooing without having to do any other type of job.
it's great.
And it's a blessing. And I couldn't ask for a better job. It's the best job I've ever had by far, for sure.
That's awesome. Congratulations.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
so
Thanks,
cool to be
man.
able to do what you want to do for a living all the time. And
Yeah.
that's something most
Yeah.
people never get.
I know, right? It's been great. Yeah.
So when you were doing the apprenticeship, like I have to imagine that a lot of like the fuck offs and stuff like that is there's got to be some level of gatekeeping because I'm guessing a lot of people that want to be tattoo artists are kind of flaky. I would say probably is that sort of what it is. Is they probably have people in there all the time, and it's like they just can't.
I don't really, it's hard for me to judge where people come from about all that. I think a lot of it is, I mean, there's gatekeeping, territorialness. There's the concept of, oh, if you were working here and my regular comes in and sees your work and wants to get a
Yeah,
tattoo from now, you become their regular and they stop getting tattooed by me and now I'm losing out on money, that kind of thing.
yeah, because
And
there is not a
there's
ton of it, and there's not a ton of it in for it them in this unless they come up
right,
with what you just
exactly,
described. Yeah, that
exactly.
makes sense.
And then there's also just the fact that I don't know, I think a lot of tattoo artists are, I mean, and I'm not even speaking specifically about anybody, but I just think generally tattoo artists are kind of crazy people.
Yeah,
I mean, they're artists. They're fucking weirdos. You know what I mean? They're
they're the
not
drummers of artists, sort of.
right, right. Kinda, yeah, where they're just kind of, they're doing their own thing. They play by their own rules. Like they don't like having bosses and like, they're out there just doing their own thing. And and they know, just like I'm saying about there's no guarantee of work, that they're trying to make sure that they stay making a living, and I don't blame them at all. You know what I mean? And so it's no hard feelings about any of that fuck off mentality. I get it. But at the same time, I think there is plenty of room. So
Yeah.
it's just one of those things where you're just dealing with crazy people, but you run into that in any profession, any career.
It's funny because when I was growing up, like I mentioned, I'm like my mid 40s. Like in
Yeah.
Massachusetts where I live, you couldn't legally get a tattoo until around the year 2000. Or if you, I mean, I knew like family members of mine got them done like in people who had actually decent studios inside their homes, but it was technically illegal. And
Hmm.
back then it was like bikers had tattoos, people in the military. It was like basically like if you had like an anchor tattoo, like where I was from, if you like
Right,
were in the
right,
Navy. And now it's
right.
like there's way more bodies out there, and there's way more people get. I got my first tattoo at like 37,
Wow.
and now
Okay.
I get at least a couple a year, and it's just
Yeah.
you know I think a
Yeah.
lot of
That's
people have more of a fuck it mentality because I found that it's
yeah.
like when you're 18, people like you really want that Garfield on you for the rest of your life, and I only have to
Right.
think, do I really want this Garfield on me for half of my life? And it's a
Right.
half
Right.
of an
Right.
easier
Right.
decision.
Yeah. Well, and a lot of older people that grew up, people older than you that are coming in for their first tattoos all the time. A lot of mothers with their daughters, or daughters
Yes.
just turned 18, 19. They want, the cute little fine line lettering on their ribs. And the mom's like, I want something too. Is it going to hurt? I'm like, did you give birth to this child? And she's like, yeah. And I'm like, you're going to be fine. I promise.
Yeah.
And, they have that same mentality where it's like, I only have, 40 years, 50 years left. So fuck it. Who cares? You know what I mean? So
And I
it's
think
very
that's
interesting.
yeah.
Go ahead.
I think they've also reached the age where, like, I think what most people are worried about is whatever judgment they have associated in their head as being a person with tattoos, and they're thinking about, oh, what's it going to happen if I have to wear a strapless dress as a bridesmaid or something like that? And I think, and eventually, most people reach the point where they go, fuck it, when it comes to judgment and stuff like that, and they're like, all
Yeah.
right, well, this ain't going to cost me a job. It's
Hmm.
like it's about time I start living my life.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like, are you worried about somebody judging what you're wearing today? You know
Exactly.
what I mean?
Yeah.
Like how you present is I get it. It's like there forever, and it's this one moment decision, or maybe it could be spontaneous, or it could be something you thought about forever. But either way, as time goes on, things change, your style changes, whatever. It's still a decision that you made. But like, I think a big part of it is the shift in culture around social acceptability of tattoos, which makes it more welcoming for people to just generally have them
Mhm.
without fear of people judging you. But then it's also
Exactly.
just like we're more able to kind of not take that so seriously. Like you're just in this fleshy form for now. Like who gives a fuck? You know what I mean?
Exactly. Yeah. And one thing too that I found weird about tattoos is that how quickly my brain accepts it as a part of my body that it was almost like it was always there. Like the first
Yeah.
few days, it's noticeably like this is new. Like when you catch yourself in the mirror, it kind of like, but very quickly it feels like something that was always there. And I have some kind of weird tattoos, not like anything like anything I would regret or anything, but like I have a spy versus spy tattoo. It's like I could wake up one day and hate that, but I've never felt that. It always just now feels like a part of me that's even beyond whatever the character was. So which
Sure,
is something that's
sure.
really cool that I didn't expect before I started getting them. So
Yeah, totally. Well, I started getting tattooed at 16. I had a senior in high school started a tattoo apprenticeship at my high school, and he wanted to practice on somebody, and I was
the
like,
parents must have loved him.
I'm fucking right here, dude. So I just, to me, it's just, I think a part of the culture, at least when I was growing up, was as much as it was socially acceptable or starting to be, it was also like kind of the contrarian punk rock thing to do, like kind of a fuck you to your own fleshy form, as well as to anybody around you who would judge you around it.
Yeah.
And so I don't know. And then also being a tattoo artist and collecting, being around tattoo artists and just making art in general, my mentality is totally different. I mean, I remember drawing with Sharpies all over myself as a kid. And it's like, dude,
Yeah.
it's just a part of being a creative, I think. I mean, even artists who don't tattoo have a bunch of tattoos. So there's just something to that culture where it's just, I don't know. You just don't really think of it as some like, oh, somebody's gonna fucking say something about my
Yeah.
tattoos. Like, I don't give a fuck, dude. You
Yeah.
could say
I
something
know.
about my nose or my mole or something weird. Like, so what? You know what I mean?
I know. I think it speaks to some sort of there's so many ways in society that we're not evolving, but the general acceptance of stuff like that seems like a step in the right direction. And that, like,
Yeah.
I always talk about how there's the golden rule is treat people the way you want to be treated, but I joke there's a platinum rule to treat people how they want to be treated, and it's like I think that makes a lot more sense, and it at least puts you in a place of empathy instead of a place of narcissism, you know.
Yeah. Well, I
But
guess how do you gauge how people want to be treated?
I guess try to do your best is probably what is. I think that's also probably a good lesson for everybody, just all the time. Is just try to do your
Right.
best, you know.
Sure, sure. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So I don't know. But whatever.
Absolutely.
So when you started, when you were trying to get that apprenticeship at that level, what did you feel that you were confident? What could you do as a tattoo artist? Did you feel that you could that you could do a tattoo and you just needed the infrastructure, or did you really still need to actually learn a lot of the basics?
So I equate it to like have you ever tried to use a calligraphy pen?
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, okay. So I know how to use a normal pen, but I
right.
don't know how to use a calligraphy pen.
That was Yep, makes
So
perfect sense.
I needed training to learn how to use a calligraphy pen. So it's not like, oh, I'm super confident in making a tattoo. It's I know how to make art and I know how to draw and I know how to trace, which is basically mostly what tattooing is.
Yeah,
Is the drawing's already done, you put the fucking stencil on. It's a trace job.
yeah,
But the tool that you need to use requires a certain way of using it, and you also have to deal with a brand new canvas every time. And so everybody's skin is different, everybody's part of their body is different. Even if you're doing a larger piece, you're dealing with one type of skin from one side of the arm to the other side of the arm,
it's true.
from 2 inches down to 4 inches up. It's you have to be able to gauge as you're going along on a canvas, like how best to implement using that calligraphy pen, so to speak.
Yeah,
So it's
and make decisions on the fly. Yeah, it's like
yeah, so that's really what I needed practice with. And so when I was practicing, we had this stuff, it's basically silicone,
mhm.
and it's just like instead of like, back in the day they were doing what, like pig skin or fucking orange peels and shit,
They were
it's just
pigskin. People would practice
yeah,
tattooing on pigskin.
people, yeah, like
Jesus
this is
Christ.
old school shit. Yeah, and I just like, we don't have any of that, but I would use like these silicone, like just a flat sheet, or they made like a prosthetic arm that you could practice on.
Yeah, that
And
makes sense.
and and so I would practice on that, and I would do flash pieces that I created full color, but then around those I would just make lines, and I just needed to practice making lines. Um, and one thing that I have is a very shaky hand.
Same with me. Yeah,
Yeah. So
it's one of the things
there's
I
two,
find it hardest as an artist is that it's always going to be that way.
right. So I had to find ways to sort of counter my shakiness while tattooing. And so practicing just making lines over and over again was a way for me to learn how the machine works and learn how my hand works with something with a motor running in my fucking hand. You know what I
Yeah,
mean? So and
exactly.
it's funny because when I was doing that, I asked my mentor, I was like, what should I do? I have a shaky hand. And they were like, I don't know. I don't have a shake in my hand. I don't know what to tell you. And I'm like, fuck.
Well, I think
you know?
it sounds like there's a saying that like when it comes to like your brain, the neurons that fire together wire together. So just like you
Yeah,
said, doing it enough, it's like then it puts like if there's an order of operations in your brain, that repetitive thing goes above the thing that makes your hand shake. So
right,
it's
right.
it's like one of those things where it's like you stutter except for in this particular circumstance. I'm stuttering as I say that. It's kind of weird.
It's all good. Yeah, yeah.
But like but yeah, that's pretty neat. I'm kind of fascinated with how the brain works, how you can train your brain, and
Yeah,
just the way that you like learning how you learn is such an important thing. It unlocks so much
totally.
exponential.
Well, and I'm all about looking for practical solutions. And so, 50% of pulling a line successfully on somebody's skin is stretching the skin. If you
Oh,
don't stretch
interesting.
the skin properly, you can flub up. You're running into like groove and like just the skin not taking a line smoothly. And so I started realizing I need my hand here to stretch the skin and then tattoo around that. So what I found was that stretching hand was a perfect base for my
Wow.
tattooing hand, so I could pull this line smoothly. And so not just that, the palm of the hand that I'm tattooing with can also be based onto the canvas. And then I have that secondary foundation of my stretch hand. So it's funny because I've tried to have people film me tattooing so I have like content for on Instagram or
Yeah.
whatever. And every time they try to film me, bro, I'm covering everything up because my hands are so close together when I'm
Yeah.
making a line, and I have to peer in there in the corner while I'm pulling this line because it's insane because like sometimes I can't even see where I'm going, but I've repeat motor activity myself into this. I pull this fucking line, I'm not even looking. I look, I wipe, and it's there, and it's exactly what I want. And I'm like, oh, okay, cool. What the hell was
It's
that? You know what
amazing.
I mean? Like,
It's amazing
I
what
don't
it feels
even.
like magic. I love that
Right.
shit.
Yeah, it's
It's
great.
yeah,
Now,
yeah.
granted, sure, most of my clients don't like hearing that I can't see what I'm doing, but you know what I mean. They
Yeah,
end up
yeah,
getting
yeah.
what.
That it was funny you mentioned like the shaking because like I back in my early days I was a landscaper and every time I see somebody with those leaf blowers I just remember how they make my teeth chatter and like just like holding it with your hand that vibration fucks you up.
Yeah.
How much vibration is there on a tattoo gun? I've only been on the
So
machine
I've
blowers.
so there's two major types of tattoo machines. There's coils and there's rotaries. Coils, the ones you're probably familiar with, like typically when they turn on, you know.
Yeah,
Rotary machines are newer technology. They're real quiet, and they basically the coils are the piece of metal slapping in the back there, and it's jamming in and out like this. A rotary machine is the motor is pushing the needle in and out like this, so it's considered less trauma to the skin, even though you still need the same amount of trauma for a tattoo. But the motor itself is actually much quieter and has less vibration.
oh,
So
that's fair.
the downside to it, though, is that it's not as heavy. So having the weight in your
Yeah,
hand actually helps to steady your hand, but then there's vibration. So there's this weird double-edged sword with it. You know what I mean?
yeah.
But my mentor has basically had me straight away on rotaries. That's what they used, and so I just went straight to rotaries. A lot of traditional old school tattooers, they hate that. They call it dildo pens. They're like, "Oh, you're using your cute little dildo pen." Like, "Oh, you don't even
There's
know how
always
to."
prick waving, no matter what you're in. There's someone waving their dick around.
Yeah, and I'm like, yeah, okay, word. Well, I'm still making tattoos and getting paid for it, so
Yeah,
think what you want. So it's
yeah.
just funny though because yeah, there's double-edged sword with both of them, but I learned on rotary. I've been comfortable with it, and yeah, the shaking thing is just something you had to just work around. I mean, it's not.
Yeah.
Once you practice enough, you get used to it, and and everybody's skin's different, so sometimes you run into issues that not to do with shaking, but just like implementation, and you just have to find practical solutions. And so that's kind of, I take my construction brain a little bit into making tattoos as well, so.
Yeah. Is it just ironic that the tattoo that you designed for me is sort of like a scribbling thing in, or is that somehow like it's
So
obviously it's very easy with a shaky hand. That seems like a good
You know,
call.
I'll tell you what. And I wore this shirt because this is the first flash sheet I ever made,
Oh, that's dope.
and it's just real simple black line work. My mentor told me
I
to
like
make
that ghost. That cloud's beautiful
yeah,
too.
and to make real simple line work so that I could practice my original designs in a very simple, quick way.
Yeah.
And
Beautiful character work.
thank you. But that all these, they're not broken, fucked up lines. They're like
Right.
trying to be smooth, and so I intended with tattooing to go in that direction from the beginning. And as time went on, I don't know, I guess my whole get down is throwing shit at the wall to see what sticks.
Yes.
And
That's very
and
important.
and, and in the process of doing that though, I'm very picky about the shit that I throw at the wall. And so, especially because I like to do bootleg stuff, I like to take characters and fuck them up and make them
Mhm.
weird. I was just trying to think of how can I create a variation on the theme of something that is already exists, but and that so that people can identify with it and it's something that they want, but like they've never seen this version before. And
Exactly.
so I don't honestly don't even remember why or how I did that, but I just thought I never see this. So I just made it and put it out there. And I think I had started it with not even bootleg versions. I think I had made a Halloween flash sheet and it was like a candy corn, boo, boo,
Yeah.
fucking a cat, like just like shitty fucking drawing. And then
This is
I,
postmodern. Like
yeah, I'm like, it's just trash art, or I don't know. I always call it little kid drawing style, is what I
yeah.
call it. Like I'm attempting to find the little kid version of me that would do a drawing of this, but refine it as if it's done professionally or
Yeah.
in a way that is tasteful, I guess, and
Yeah.
so there's
It's
a
funny you
weird balance.
mentioned. Yeah,
You
it's
know.
funny you
Go
mentioned
ahead.
that because one of the reasons I arrived at getting the design that you designed for me is that I really like this piece I saw is an Alice in Wonderland piece, but it looked like a patch, and it looked like a patch you'd see on like a hat or like on a jacket.
An embroidered patch. An embroidered
Yeah, and
patch.
it was really cool, but it creeped me out maybe 10 to 15%. And I was just like, and I don't know why, but I was just like, this is something that I feel like, I like when people see my tattoos and like smile. I have like, Felix the cat. I kind of like that about it. And I feel like
Yeah,
there's
sure.
something about that that makes me a little creeped out. But I'm like, I wanted something in that same vein of playing with the idea. And when I saw what you were doing, I was like, that's it. Because especially lined up with
Yeah,
the fact that this was a kid drawing for me. I'm like, yeah. So
absolutely.
those
Yeah.
embroidered ones are very cool. I just don't know that I want one on my body all the time.
I've had multiple people ask me to do that, and I'm like, no way, dude, I can't do that. I'm like, nah, that's. I just, with being a tattoo artist, you get requests for a lot of stuff that's in the realm of the things that you do, but I'm like that. Like, if I don't have any comfort with it, I've never done that before. I'm not gonna pretend like I can
Yeah.
out of nowhere. I'd love to practice
Yeah.
that kind of shit, but
It's strange to try to describe to somebody who doesn't know anything about art why you can do this but can't do that. Because it's like their brain doesn't really work that way. You're like, it's just sort of, trust me.
yeah,
Like, but I believe
yeah,
in you, but I'm like, but I don't. Like, and I don't
right,
want
right,
to, is the more important
yeah,
part.
totally, yeah, absolutely, yeah.
I have
It's
other
very.
dragons to slay today. Thank you very
Yeah,
much.
yeah, it is very interesting. And something I learned early on with tattooing is even me making original art and people want my original art, it has nothing to do with me. It's something that they want for them. They found something.
Right.
They probably see that drawing completely differently than I do.
Mhm.
And so they're seeing something in it that, connects with them, identifies with them, and I'm like, it's yours. So
Yeah.
something I did early on was I'm never repeating designs. I do when I make a flash, it's not even a flash because flash is synonymous with like hanging on the wall and I'll take it down and make 20 of these today. I
Mhm.
don't do that. When I make one design, you want it, it's yours and it's yours forever. I want you to have this unique original piece of art because you saw something in it and that's it.
It's awesome. Yeah,
Yeah,
that
and
is really cool.
yeah, I think that's the best way to do it. I mean, don't get me wrong, I want the money on repeating designs people want, but
Yeah.
I also took it on as a challenge to like I have to keep making art now. You know what I mean? I have to
Yeah.
keep making more because I can imagine myself getting complacent saying, oh well, like I've gotten 20 requests for this one flash. I'll just keep making it. Fuck it.
Yeah, there is. I run into that too, where I actually I saw this in 2015. Did this thing where I drew a portrait in pencil every day for a year. Most of them were like celebrities and stuff, and I
Uh huh.
realized in that year, like that just that repetition is so important. It's just getting into that habit that every day you're going to get up and do something, and you're at least going to do that. It makes a huge difference. Like, I got as good at drawing portraits as I was going to by like the third month of the year. But in the
Okay.
rest of that time, I learned so much about the discipline of making art that was way more valuable than that.
Nice. No,
Yeah,
that's awesome.
yeah. It's
Yeah,
just
that's the way to do it. Is just keep making shit. I mean, there are days I want to make something cool or whatever. I'm like, it's time to make Flash, and I sit down and I start drawing. I'm like, I don't know what the fuck I'm doing, and
yeah,
then I'll scribble literally the dumbest shit, like a creature bent over with boobs and then the butt and it's farting, and then I'm
yeah.
like, all right, whatever. This is what I made today. Who cares? But at
Someone will
least I
probably
pulled.
want it.
Well, I pulled it out. I drew something. It's not something I want to put out in the world, but I
Yeah,
drew it, and then that's it. Whatever. Who
yeah.
cares?
Your task that day may have been getting that out of the way of a good idea. Is
Right.
is
Exactly.
is the way I think about it. You know what's funny? So you
Yeah.
mentioned the Bay Area. I I'll get to the point of this in a minute, but Instagram today, I saw that a record store around me got 3 original copies in of Kerplunk, the Green Day album, on cassette, and I'm like, I don't really want those. I love that album. And like
Yeah.
that, if you remember the art of that, it was the woman. I feel she's holding the flowers or has a flower shirt, but very tied to the Bay Area. Um,
Sure.
you mentioned punk rock. For me, it goes hip hop and then punk rock in terms of my fandom. Was there
Sure.
something that is that all tied together for you? Were you inspired by the art of that era, and what's your connection to it?
I would say, yeah. I mean, so I was born in '88, so I'm 35 now. I'll tell you the first three albums I bought, I remember them. So the first album I ever bought ever was ODB Return of the 36 Chambers.
Nice.
Second album ever was the Wayne's World soundtrack.
Of course.
Then the third album was Corn Follow the Leader. So it's like that kind of sums up all, and I really nerded out on every subgenre of every genre. So like
Yeah.
I went down the Corn rabbit hole of weird like metal, and like I thought like on the Corn Follow the Leader album they did a lot of weird experimentation.
Yeah.
Like they flipped their amps up so that the speaker was sitting upright, and they put like screws and nails and shit on it so that they had weird extra sounds. And I nerded out on that concept and looked for artists that would experiment that way. I think one of the first punk albums I had was Dookie, and then the second one was Pennywise, Go Straight Ahead.
Yes.
And so just going into all the crevices of each of those kind of genres has definitely, I don't know, ODB's absurdity, like it's
Yeah.
like absurd.
I
Like
posted something on my story today. Joe Budden on his podcast was reading this story about ODB recording his verse from Mariah Carey's Fantasy. I'm a huge Mariah Carey fan. And it's this story, every time you think it's over, it gets crazier and crazier. It's like this 3-minute long story, and you're just like, oh, I miss this guy. I got to do a song with his son. On my album coming out, I did an album with I did a song with Young Dirty Bastard that's coming out next year.
Yeah, holy shit.
As I'm listening to the story, I'm so grateful for how easy it was to work with his son. It was like, I gave him this money, and about a month I had my thing back. And I'm just like, oh man, yes, true professional.
Yeah, amazing. Yeah, you didn't have to have any crack smoke in your studio.
Yeah, I know. It's funny you mentioned Dookie. When I was a kid, I was born in 79, so that I was like maybe 13 or 14 when that came out, and it was huge, obviously. When they were playing a show at the Hatch Shell in Boston, which is like this area where like the Pops play for like the 4th of July, where it's like John Williams conducting orchestras and stuff. But they all have like local radio stations to put bands on, and they booked Green Day around that time. But between the time when they booked Green Day and when the show happened, Green Day went from being like, oh, this band we're gonna play at 3 a.m. once, to being like the biggest band in the world, and all hell broke loose. It was like the people throwing it had no reason to believe there was gonna be 200,000 people show up, but it was like a huge. I don't think it was that many. It was a huge amount of people. They played about 3 songs, and people jumped the stage, and were just like. And they had to like run for their lives and stuff. But I didn't get to go to that, but a bunch of my friends did. But that's yeah, everybody learned a lesson about how quickly people can become famous back then.
Sure. Yeah, so but to answer your question possibly better, I don't know. The album arts kind of influenced me, but I would say the music itself, I believe, and the attitude behind it, or at least what I perceived from it as a younger person, was what influenced me more than anything. I mean, I'm all about contrarian shit, absurdity. Like I'm like, oh, this is ugly to you. I fucking love it. You know what I mean? Like whatever you think is like, I remember when I was a kid, everybody was like, AC/DC's cool, Led Zeppelin's cool. I was like, nope. Like I'm like, just because, whatever you thought was cool, I'm like, it's not. You know what I mean?
Led Zeppelin is like the Dungeons and Dragons of music, and people don't really seem to notice that.
Right. And so there was an attitude in Return of the 36 Chambers, and there was an attitude in Korn, and there was there was an attitude in punk, and there's just there's something to it where it was just like, whatever everybody around you wants you to do, you're going to do the opposite to prove to them that that's not the only way to do things,
Right.
And so I think that that's something that's, I get in arguments with people all the time just for the fucking sake of it. It's just built in.
I was like that for years, and eventually I had to. I have this thing where it's like, I post every once in a while that if you're arguing with a stranger online, you've already lost. And the other day I did post something, and I had to go back and delete it. I was like, I can't step over that line. I can't.
Yeah, for sure. Oh no, I can't do it online. I don't know if you've deep dove on my Instagram. I am nothing but smiles and thankses, and
I'm the same way too.
I'm not playing on Instagram or nothing. It's not the place with my close friends. We're having a beer or something. I'm like what? Yeah. So what you think? And like just to fuck with them, because they already know who I am, and I have that safe place to do that. But I'm not Strangers, hell no. You don't need to know my opinion about anything. I don't care about yours, you know?
Yeah. I'm like that with hip. Like Copyright's a big is a friend of mine. He's a hip hop artist that I've liked for years, and he has a line about taking the art of taking shit talking to the art form, taking the art of shit talking to the art form, whatever the fuck it is. I should know.
Sure.
But it's like I'm a really nice person and friendly, but I do love shit talking. I love cracking on people, and it's like it's
Yeah.
unfortunate that not everybody is into that. You know,
Totally. Yeah, totally.
but there's too,
Yeah.
some people are so terrible at it that they shouldn't be trying. But it's just like it is endearment for me, and it's like it's just fun. It's harmless.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, totally. But yeah, no, music was always a huge part of art in general for me. I mean, I learned how to play guitar at 10, and then
what was your first song?
Come
Mine was
As You
when I
Are.
come. Mine was when I come around by Dookie by Green Day. What would you say yours was?
Come As You Are.
I think my second one was Breed.
Right.
Do, and actually about a girl. That was the other one.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then I went to bass, and then drums, and then piano, and then I went the gamut of playing bands in high school and middle school and stuff, and then I found Ableton, and I was like producing my own stuff. This was 2007, 2009 era, so dubstep was getting big. I was trying to make weird halftime dubstep weird shit, and
Yeah, I love all that rave shit.
yeah, I got to play shows and DJ and stuff for a while, and it's all sort of mixed in with it. Got into the graffiti shit in high school, so it was just it's all kind of wrapped into being a cohesive unit that is now expressing itself the way it is now. But it's been a journey with all of that.
It's funny. I fell down a rabbit hole the other day on Spotify of I'm a hip hop artist too, so I try to like learn about promoting music, and like there was something about how someone going down the whole of like, oh, you need to have your frequencies all at this, and this is all super important to this and this, and I was like, didn't matter to the Sex Pistols. Like,
right.
It's like, so maybe if you're trying to like bullshit people, that is all really important. But like, it's like you can spend your time doing that, or you can spend your time trying to connect to whatever you have inside of you that like Johnny Rotten in them found in them. Like everybody, if you're an artist, you have some point of magic that is uniquely you that you can share with the world. And I'd rather spend my time on that than turning a knob forever,
Absolutely. That's, I think, one thing I got a little discouraged after a while with music is I kind of got a little defeatist and was like, I feel like everything's been done. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like how am I, like, I couldn't wrap my head around how to make something unique and original with music that didn't sound like total shit, like because it already had been done. And so I always commend any people who currently make music, because that pursuit for me it felt very difficult. It's a hard path.
It is, because it's to consciously make music unlike somebody else takes you on like almost like a doomed task to begin with, and to make music sounds like somebody else. It's like, I mean, everybody has heard, if you listen to enough music, you've heard Smells Like Teen Spirit riff in numerous songs, both before and after that song came out. And another big example is Last Dance with Mary Jane by Tom Petty. There's a bunch of songs that have that same riff. And it's like,
exactly.
Once you start realizing that, you're like, oh, it really is about how you do it and not what you're doing. It's like, that's an important thing to really learn, is because people really get like wrapped up in weird details when it comes to music,
Yeah, totally. Well, that's why I really liked DJing and the concept of like mashup art,
Yeah, me too. Yeah.
Like, I remember taking you remember that Oh Brother Where Art Thou soundtrack?
Yeah. Oh, that's right for mashups. Yeah.
Dude, I remember taking an Alison Krauss song from that, like I'll Fly Away, and mixing it with a Rusko beat, like Rusko dubstep track. And it just fucking went perfectly together. The composition was perfect. You just edit in where you cut from one song to the next, and it was beautiful. And so that kind of shit was where I'll still DJ now. I just do it like on Tractor DJ on my iPad at home, just fucking around. But like, that's the one way I'd say creatively I express myself with music now.
You ever listen to DJ Z Trip from back in the day?
No.
He's now LL Cool J's DJ. He's been him for years, but he like, he didn't invent it, but he was really big in the mashups. Like he would do the big mashups where it was like Rush and like Jay-Z or something. But he would have these whole sets that were just banger after banger of these cool mashups. And I remember going to see him a bunch back in the day. It's just it was awesome. It was just opened my eyes to so much shit, you know.
Hell yeah. I've got someone to look up now. DJ Z Trip.
Yep, Z Trip, find him at the end of the alphabet. Zach something. There's a great documentary called Scratch that came out about 20 years ago by this director Doug Prey, who was it really he's in that a lot. DJ Cubers, DJ Shadow, who's from I think your neck of the woods a little bit,
Yep.
and it's just yeah, and like in all the Scratch Pickles, Mixmaster Mike. It's really amazing about even if you're not into scratching, it just shows you how far down, how much art there is in just this. And just like
Right.
when it's like it just shows you how like 7 notes is plenty, really.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
if you know what to do with them. And even this is enough.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
it's inspiring as fuck.
Yeah, I found the infinite possibility on Ableton to be just overwhelming. And it's like, so I would set a challenge for myself. I'm like, you can only use like 5 fucking things, make
Yeah.
something with it. And with music, limitation is the most freeing aspect of it, I think. And I think with physical art is kind of the same too, like if I'm redrawing a Garfield, I just pick, a stance of Garfield and I'm like, all right, let's play with this. And you're going to create variations and be way more successful and have way more freedom to create than if you're like, well, it could be fucking any character. You know what I mean? Like you got to pick something,
Yeah. The 2 biggest mistakes I see young musicians make or newer musicians make is that they either make the same song over and over again, or they try to put an album's worth of songs into one song. And or of like just too much stuff going on, and it's like
I did a lot.
Yeah, I did the same thing, and it's like it's just finding the right pace for you to go at where you make your best music is really important. So how do you stay disciplined? Because that's something too that for full-time artists, obviously you got to pay the bills and stuff like that, but with no one sitting over your shoulder, like how do you sort of regulate? I posted this something. My dad has owned machine shop his entire life, and his saying has been, when you work for yourself, your boss is always an asshole. And I don't really know exactly what that means, but can you relate to that at all? Maybe explain to me what he's talking about.
Yeah, I mean, it's just I think that what that expression is probably getting at is the concept that you are your own worst critic. And so if you're attempting to achieve something, you're never actually achieving it. And like what do they say? It's not the destination, it's the journey,
Yeah.
And so I think you just implement that in the process of building your career when there's no aha, the career is built. It's just you are in the journey of building your career, which means you have to keep grinding at it. And honestly, I think it's just staying immersed in seeing other people make art and getting inspired and being like because I venture off into a lot of different things. If you go through my Flash, there it's style to style to style. Like, I mean, and a lot of them are very uniquely me, but they're different, And so, I went through a phase of everything I did had like a melty rip apart kind of effect to it. And then other stuff was, oh, that my phone's being weird. Other stuff will be, the little kid drawing stuff. Sometimes it's like I want to do like my version of tradition, like folk art traditional.
Yeah.
So I just stay doing it by staying inspired by looking at what other people are doing and then trying to make my own version of it. I will literally look at something and kind of like zoom in and really look at it, and I'm like, what the fuck is it? Because I'm sure you run into seeing a tattoo artist work or even just a visual artist work or a musician. You're looking at, you're like, how the fuck they do that? And then without reference, just pretend like you have a trace and you just draw that from your brain, or you try to make that from your brain, and it becomes your own unique version. Or if you can't draw, for me, if I can't draw it, I will trace an actual character. Then my tracing, I'll trace over that, and then I'll trace over that, and then I'll trace over that, and eventually I get to something that's something
your own.
Yeah. And so how do I stay doing this without a boss other than myself? I have no idea, dude. I just
momentum probably.
I just keep going. I mean, like you said, there's bills that need to get paid, and so I just, I'd rather be creating than, going to the life suckage that is some other fucking guy, riding your ass, and so, I'd rather be hard on myself and stay up late at night wondering what I need to be making and doing than, trying to please somebody else, so.
Yeah.
Hard to answer that question. It's
Yeah,
like
yeah.
I don't really know. Things just happen. Like, well, I still don't understand how I pay my bills. Like, I don't really get it. Like, some money shows up somehow, and I just go and tattoo, and I'm never really exhausted. Like I have to go exhaust myself physically other ways.
Right.
I don't know. I don't really
Yeah.
know how it happens. I'm just
Construction, the older you get, that is not a fun gig. Like you don't want to be
no.
doing that in your 40s and 50s, and like,
Oh,
with dudes that like to play like, dodge with like nail guns and stuff. And like I remember when I was a
yeah.
kid, my friend's brother had a construction company, and every year they'd have a thing because it gets pretty cold out here where they'd have a contest, but who could go the longest in the season without putting their gloves on. And I'm like,
Oh my
who's winning in this?
god.
Like, I mean, it's like I don't need that additional stress in my life
For real. That's
while
insane.
I'm operating heavy equipment.
Right, right.
I guess it's funny though, no matter what, like you'll always find a way to make a game out of something. Is that I think that's part of how the mind works. Is that like
Yeah.
it's like when you're doing a repetitive task, you have to find some way to make a game out of it to make it like interesting. But,
Yeah. I will say the one main thing I do is I make flat, like basically the main way I create art now for my business is through Flash. Flash, my one time drawings for people. And my main thing is I kind of don't care what people want to see. I think
yeah,
that's the main thing is there are times like the first Garfield Flash sheet I made blew up. People loved it. I was like, all right, you guys like that? I'll make a few more. So I do things for other people. But the original idea was, everybody might hate this, and I'm just going
right.
to do it anyway. And so when I venture into new styles, and one post gets like Garfield Flash is like 20,000 likes, people love that shit. And then I make a folk art traditional Flash sheet, and it gets like 70 likes, and I'm like, I don't
But
give a shit. You know what I mean?
yeah,
I made what I wanted to do, and I don't really care what you guys think. All the only effect it has on me was, well, shit, I spent energy on something that's not making me money.
yeah.
But I guess that's the only give and take, I guess, where I go, shit, I need to focus on something that will make me money. But I feel like if I do that, it's another form of kind of selling your soul to, and I want to just continue to just make what I feel like making, and that might look completely different from what I do right now in the next 5 years. Who
Yeah.
knows? So
I found too that there's kind of three levels of the art I make. There's the art, well, kind of four. There's the stuff I don't finish, the stuff that I finish but don't want to show, the stuff, and then there's the other half is stuff that I show, and that falls into two halves. The half that I think is good that people don't respond to, and the half that people do respond to. And I don't know
sure,
which, and it's like accepting that is the reality of it for me what helped me a lot because it got me past ego, it got me past stuff like that where you're just like, that's just the way it's going to be. And like, I've it's like there's some people, it's almost like when you're an artist, you're both the actor and the director. And there's some actors who need somebody else to be the director. And to
sure.
sort of give that over the director role to the public is sort of for me kind of a freeing thing where you're like, I'll do my best part, but I kind of do need some like I don't know what of my like I did an art show a few years ago and I was very surprised by what pieces sold. Like stuff that like
Right.
that they would have known that which ones took me 5 minutes and which ones I didn't like and which ones took me forever. But like I learned a very lot about what people thought about my art that day versus what I thought about it. And that's
Sure, sure.
and someone's got to love something to tattoo something on their body. Like
I know, right? I know. It's a trip. I always am surprised when people want my art on their body. I'm like, okay, like, real? Are you sure? you know,
have
it's
you
it
ever
is a
yeah, go
trip.
for it. Have
I
you
was
ever
just
had
saying
I'll go for
trip.
it. Sorry. You
No, 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 no. You're fine. I was just saying it's a trip. That's all. It just trips me
yeah.
out.
What have you ever had somebody who got in the chair and just couldn't handle it and just it was like that was it? Like any good like I don't want to like out anybody or anything, but any good stories from the workplace that are worth sharing?
Um, Not really, man. Like,
That's good.
mo- I don't know if you noticed, but a lot of my stuff is not huge hours and hours pieces.
Right.
I don't really like making that. I like seeing the product done at the end of the day. I don't want to make a second session out of it, which is a terrible business plan. I know. As a tattoo artist, you want to, all right, we got 4 hours in and we're going to have
Yeah,
another
yeah.
4 month and another four next month. And like, that's a lot of people make a lot of great money tattooing doing it that way. And I can't hate on it because it's not like they're trying to make money off of people. It's just the art they make takes a long time.
Yeah.
And so I just don't operate like that. I'm like, I need something, done now. Like this thing, not this whole thing, like it's
Right.
just a little thing.
I
I've had
can't
a
make
couple.
that big of a tattoo decision at once. That to me is too big of a tattoo decision.
Right.
Because I'm doing this thing on my arm where every time I visit a new state, I get an outline of a leaf tattooed, and I have 13 of them now. So
Okay.
eventually, I'll have maybe 50. I'm supposed to go to Alaska next year now to perform. So now I feel like I'm going to get one of the hard to get ones. And I drove through
Sure.
Alabama for 15 minutes earlier this year, so that counted. But for
Yeah.
me, it's like allowing that to evolve and grow with me has been. It's like when I see people go in. I met this dude once the same weekend I got my first tattoo. He got a rooster here that was like enormous, and I'm like, holy shit! Like,
Yeah. Sure.
commitment.
That's amazing. No, I mean, I have stories like, like someone got one of their first tattoos was one of the Garfield ones, and they got it, and it was pretty quick and painless. They didn't seem like they were in a lot of pain or anything, but right after, I was like, "So, did I scare you off for getting any more tattoos?" And they were kind of like, "Yeah, I think this is gonna be it." And I was like, "Whoa, like, are you okay?" You know what I mean? Like, I was like freaking out. I was like,
Yeah,
"Okay, like, was it really that bad?" They were like, "It was fine. It was doable, but everything else I want is huge, so this will probably be it." And I was like, "Okay, that's fine. I can live with that." But
yeah.
just I
And they
that was
make
the
it home
hardest.
and reconsider. How many people have their first kid and say never again? You know,
Right.
like,
Fair enough. Yeah. But I just was so shocked by that
yeah.
immediate response. It was like, "Oh, shit, I've never heard anybody say that before," you know?
Yeah. Credit to that
Yeah.
person though for not showing that
Oh,
during
yeah,
them
no,
getting tattooed. They must be able to
they
go
were
to a
fine.
zen place.
Yeah, they were fine, but
Yeah.
they were just like, "Yeah, no, no more." I'm like, "Oh, okay. No
This
problem."
Garfield one though was definitely my most painful. I don't know if I mean it'd be kind of tough to show, but it's like let's see if I can do this acrobatic thing that nobody's asking for
Yeah.
except for the foot fetish people.
Sure. Sure.
Size 13, baby. Like right
Oh,
here.
down there. Yep, yep.
It's really hard to
Well,
see. Hurt like
got it in
hell.
a yeah, you got it in a weird spot. So one thing I'll
Yeah.
say is lower legs during the healing process, you get a lot of pain too, because like right when you get out of bed in the morning, all the blood rushes to it and stuff.
I did notice
And
that.
yeah, and then just that area, we got a lot of nerve clusters down there. So but again, it's always, always people ask me, what is this area gonna hurt? I'm like, I don't know where
It's
your nerve
tough.
clusters are. Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm like, I don't know.
Yeah.
So it's always hard to tell.
I'm doing like sort of a kind of like a half sleeve down here so far. That's how I'm picturing it of like all these kind of obscure cartoon characters, and I have a Wu
Sure.
Tang symbol over here that I'm gonna get. Captain America holding Thor's hammer, but I'm gonna get in the Wu Tang colors inside of it. I actually just booked that, and I'm getting a space ghost with Danger Doom like on the face right up front. So like I'm excited. I just booked my most recent appointment, so I'm getting those in March. But
I think, yeah, there's not a whole lot of horror stories. It's just, some people not being able to make decisions on what they want. A lot of the
yeah,
horror stories are like walk-ins, like people who come in compulsively to get something and they don't really know what they want, and you draw something up and they're like, "Yeah, that's not really what I wanted." And I'm like, "I don't think you really know what you want." So it's just kind of that thing. Or people fainting, that's always a scary thing when people faint.
yeah.
That's a difficult one. Um, People are crazy. I do work in San Francisco, so sometimes you're dealing with just kind of narcissists or sociopaths or whatever.
Yeah.
Like,
It is
so
funny
it's
how quickly, like, once you're spotted attracting people like that, you can nail them pretty fast. Like, oh, yep, you're one of them. Like,
totally,
let's get
totally.
you done well and get you out the door. Like,
Yeah, for sure, for sure. And yeah,
yeah.
that's it's funny because I always hated customer service jobs growing up. Like
Me
in
too, because
reference to
you're running the total. It could be anybody. It's like you're rolling the dice every time. It's like being at the
and
airport or being at Disney World.
right, and like, well, for me, it was a lot of like working in a deli, like flipping burgers, asking people what they want to eat, like how they want their coffee, something like that. But this version of customer service is a whole other beast. And what was funny is I didn't even think about that when I was getting into tattooing. I was just like, man, I'm so glad I don't have to do a customer service job again. And then I realized, I was like, holy fuck, this is the most customer service you can get. Like,
Yeah,
it's not like I make you a sandwich and I fuck it up, I'll go make you another one. You know what I mean? Like, this is
yeah.
permanently marking their body. And but I would say it's a better customer service experience because you're getting one-on-one time for a longer period of time, and you're getting to know them and connect with them, and like they have to trust you and you have to trust that they're gonna like work with you, and like you're gonna find a groove and a vibe on what you're permanently marking on their body, so
Yeah.
it's it's actually pretty rewarding. It actually is a way for me to express myself through social situations, which I'm not typically very good at, nor do I really like it.
Same with
But I
me.
get
Yeah.
to but I get to do it in a way that feels like at least we have something to connect on, and I
That's
don't
like the
know.
exact reason I do this podcast is because like I live in the middle of nowhere and I've always my entire life not had people around me who I can share this stuff with. They're like, oh, they're out there. It's like there's
Yeah,
conversations to be had. There's like stuff to learn.
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, no,
So
it's been great. I tattoo roughly 10 people a week for the last 5 years. Almost January will be 5 years,
wow.
and it's it's insane. Like like I never imagined wanting to even talk to like most people in the world. I'm just like, get the fuck out of the way. If you were moving any slower, you'd be going backwards. You know what I
I
mean?
know.
Like,
Yeah.
go, and then coming to find I actually have compassion for other people and I can empathize with other people. And like, I'm like, I actually kind of,
Yeah.
I also still don't like some people, but like I can at least figure out how to get along with them. You know what I mean? And have not
Yeah.
everything be a conflict or something.
Working in customer service taught me that 1 in 25 people is going to be an absolute wild card. Where he's just like, I
Yeah,
can handle most people, but every once in a while, there's going to be one that somehow pushes my buttons, and it's like, I just have to stifle it. And it's just, yeah, the general
totally.
public scares me. Like, not
Yeah,
all of
for real.
them, but it's some of them.
I think you know what I think it is it's the difference between groups of people and individuals. I
Yes.
think
Yes.
think the minute groups of people are together, and if they all agree on something, that idea
Scary.
is pretty stupid.
It grows exponentially. Yeah.
It's like
In strength and
the more
stupidity.
like right, yeah, exactly. If there's a bunch of people who agree about something, they're probably the idea they agree on is kind of a dumbed down caveman version of an idea. But
Yeah.
then every individual has their own nuanced, complex emotional expressions, personality traits that like I can actually I can vibe with that. You know what I mean? And so
Yeah.
it's interesting.
You basically described like what scares me about next year politically. I don't want to get into that, but like that just hit me where I'm just like, oh god.
Yeah.
So what was
Yeah.
your first tattoo that you got?
My first tattoo were these little green monsters on my hips. Here, I can try and show them, but I'm regrettably, not in shape, so give me a break,
That's all
huh?
right. Oh wow.
So
So you went big first, huh?
yeah, these little green monster guys.
Do those what do those represent to you? Or was it like a reference to something I don't know? Or did you design
There
them?
No, there was an artist named Brendan Monroe who did paintings, and he would paint up close the blades of grass that giants were kind of stepping on, and they would have these little green monsters walking around. And I
I
found
like
it in
that.
like high fructose or juxtapose or something, and I was like, these are awesome. I want to get these tattooed. Like, and I was 16, so I was like, where can I get it that it'll be hidden?
Yeah.
Because at 16 you're not really shirtless around your parents, or I don't know, maybe you are, I
Yeah.
don't know, I
No.
never was, but so I was like, I'll get that. And so the joke has always been they're kind of the groin guardians. So I don't know, again, from day one it was a joke. Like, to me, tattoos are like, to the purposefully don't take it seriously, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, it went
Agreed.
out of my way, like, it doesn't, none of this matters, your fleshy form doesn't matter, don't take life so fucking seriously, get over
So weird
yourself.
question about that though. Like, if you're 16, I'm trying to remember 16. Like, I feel like I wasn't fully grown yet. So, like, what happens with like if like you get a tattoo and you're 16, you have like a growth spurt or something, especially like that area of your body where I feel like that's where some of
Well,
that might happen.
I'll tell you, I used to be very skinny, so I'm about 6'4" right now, and I'm like 190. But like when I'm
Wow.
at but like at 6'4", I was almost 150. So I used to be really skinny. I
Yeah.
was really skinny my whole life, and I've gotten this gut in my 30s, and they've kind of started. They went from this to this, and then like kind of bent.
Yeah.
So yeah, skin moves, and like the tattoo stays where it was, but the skin stretches. So it's just,
Yeah.
people, especially women who like they're getting something on their ribs or near their stomach, and they're like, oh, if I get pregnant and then it goes back down, is my tattoo going to look all weird? I'm like, it's just going to follow what your skin does.
Yeah.
That's all it is. It's just gonna, like, if I lost this gut, my tattoos would look the way they did when I was skinny, because I would be skinny again.
Yeah.
So that
Yeah.
it just does what your body does. That's all, you know.
Yeah. Makes sense.
It's not
Well,
like the tattoo stays stretched out after, and then, oh, now your tattoo's longer once you got skinny again or something. You know what I mean?
right. Yeah. It's not like a stretch mark or something.
No.
What about the first tattoo you ever gave? Do you remember?
It
Like
was
the
on
first real
myself.
one. Oh, here's
Uh,
yeah. Well, again,
so
go to that one too.
okay, well, the first one so when I was 19, I tattooed a guy. Like, it was like literally, like, you know, the ghost guy. Like, it was like this ghost guy. So
Yeah. Yeah.
imagine the top half where it's like it's a top like that with two eyes, and then it had a hand coming out, and or an arm coming out, and the hand was a hammerhead, and then the other arm coming out was a saw. And then I tattooed that right on my inner thigh. I did that when I was 19. It looks like shit. It's blown out to hell. Whatever, right? And
Yeah. Gotta learn.
but then fast forward to in my apprenticeship, the first one I did was just above that. Um, this exact cloud
I like that. That's
on
really dope.
on my thigh, but I did the outline in like a rainbow transition. So I would make like a blue, and then I would go into pink, and then I would go into yellow, and I kind of just did primaries, but I stepped on the colors so that you had a transition of sort of a rainbow outline.
That's cool. Yeah. I'm actually I
Yeah.
have a ghost tattoo here that's only an outline. I'm thinking about doing something similar. I want to add like sort of a faint blue and pink like two around it. I've been trying to play around with that too. I love the way that shit looks.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, the cloud thing is another thing that, like, all this stuff was, when I first started, it was just stuff for my brain. And one
Yeah.
of the main things that caught on for people was this one right here.
Which one?
People,
The far right?
the wiggly clown.
Yeah. That is pretty
So
wild.
people loved that shit when I first started making art. They were like, "Oh, wiggly eye, everything," and I'm like, "All right, let's do it." You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And so that's been a staple artist moniker thing that has always stuck around, and people always kind of like, you know. And so it's just a byproduct of throwing the shit at the wall, seeing what sticks, and that's one of those things that people really enjoyed. And but that's all like stuff's just straight out of my brain, like looking at a blank piece of paper and doodling, you know.
Yeah. Yeah. What's
Yeah.
what were the characters that really spoke to you as a kid? Like for me, Garfield was one of the ones that was a real door opening one. How about you?
um I mean, Garfield was big. My dad, he was working a corporate job for a while when I was a kid, and he used to have the Dilberts.
Yeah.
So I
That
would
guy
look
went
at
bonkers. But yeah,
yeah.
Dilbert was funny as fuck back in the day.
Dilbert
Then
was
I started working. Then I started experiencing Dilbert in my day-to-day job, and it got less and less funny.
That's when it's supposed to get funnier, dude.
Yeah, I know. It's just yeah.
But yeah, but Dilbert, I mean, I remember sneaking watching Beavis and Butthead as a kid. The Beavis and Butthead animation always inspired me.
So it's funny you mentioned like that, and like it's kind of the same. Like when it comes to like Dilbert and stuff, it almost is magical in like Beavis and Butthead because there's so little to it.
Exactly, minimal.
Back then, when you had to repeat it so many times, it was all done by hand, whether it's animation or whether like you were really working within limitations. So it's like look at The Simpsons. It's like they're basically just a silhouette with a couple of eyes on it. It's like, but it's iconic, and people. It's like an example of why not to overthink things. But then again, the little details matter. You know, it's that.
You look at the evolution of the drawings of The Simpsons is very fascinating. You know, like it's. I'll show. Did you ever read Life is Hell?
I remember the bunny thing. Yeah. Yep.
This bunny right here. I grew up looking at those and just watching, like, you can see these differences even from the beginning of the first Simpsons episodes into like the way they look now, the refining of the minimal.
Yeah.
But even then, for me, I look at the raw dog versions that he made in the beginning, and I was like, these are fucking amazing. Like, just keep them simple and ugly and stupid, and it's fucking perfect. You know what I mean? That's what for some reason, that's what attracts me in art, is simple and stupid. And like, I don't mean stupid in a mean way, but just like this.
Well, there's.
absurd, like just silly and kind of dumb.
You ever heard of this podcast called "How Did This Get Made"?
What is it?
It's called "How Did This Get Made."
No.
It's one of my favorite podcasts, and it's a couple of comedians or a few that you might recognize: Jason Mantzoukas, Paul Scheer, June Diane Raphael. And every episode they watch another bad movie or a movie that's sort of what you're talking about. I'm very attracted to this too. These things that are just like, it's like, oh, this is a movie from the 70s that they spent 10 grand on, and some dude's operating a puppet and you kind of see the strings, but I still enjoy the shit out of it. And it's like,
Right.
oh, this, and you're just like, there's a certain charm, like everybody grew up inspired by like Star Wars or Indiana Jones. And it's like at a certain time, that's all people remember from that era. But there's tons of other weird and interesting things that were made in like 1981 that are totally lost to time. But when you find them, they're basically like gold mine. They're like gifts that haven't been unpacked yet. There's inspiration there that nobody's mined. And to me, that I love that shit. And I love seeing how, like, if you could do something for 20 grand in 1981, you can do it for 5 cents now. And if it worked back then, it can still work now, you know?
Oh yeah. Well, I'm a huge horror movie fan, and I love 80s horror, and I love practical effects.
Yeah.
And I think
Sleepaway Camp was one that was on there. So you must, how did this get made? So you must, hell of a practical effect at the end of that.
Yeah. I'll have to check out this podcast for sure.
Yeah.
But my mom reminded me one of my favorite movies as a child was Wizard of Oz, and she said I literally broke the VHS tape fast forwarding to the flying monkeys. All I ever cared about was the flying monkeys. And you go look back, they are like the ugliest, worst fucking costume things, and like just gritty and like just
HD fucks you there too, because you're watching it on a TV where they're relying on it doing some of that. Like, you ever see Return to Oz?
No.
So Return to Oz came on. I was in the second grade, and Fairuza Balk, who you may know from like The Craft and like The Water Boy, she's a fairly well-known actress, but like she played Dorothy. She played Dorothy, and this movie was twisted as fuck. It gave me nightmares for years and years. And it's a Disney movie. I think it's even on Disney Plus now, but it was a really strange movie. It was just a sequel to The Return to Oz, but way darker. There's no songs. It's if you'd probably dig it. It's creepy and weird.
I love it. That's awesome.
Yeah. It's like that, and if you ever see Superman 3 with Richard Pryor, there's a scene at the end where this woman gets sucked into a computer, and it's like, I swear it was only like 3 years ago I stopped seeing it in my dreams. So
nice. Amazing.
Yeah. I don't know.
Sounds like some Videodrome shit or something.
Yeah. What are your favorite movies like from that era?
The Thing is up there.
Wonderful movie.
Original John Carpenter's The Thing is one of my favorites for sure. Vampire's Kiss
with Nicolas Cage.
Yeah,
that's on How Did This Get Made as well. Holy crap! What is happening in that movie? There's a director's commentary on the DVD that if you haven't heard, I've only heard parts of it, but you got to track it down.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it felt like a precursor to like the influence for like American Psycho or something, but just like extra absurd. I don't know. I love that movie, and it's not for the practical effects, but just the absurdity of it, and just it was insane. I love that.
Do you think he was actually a vampire in that movie?
No.
Okay, me neither. But like, they sort of try to have their cake and eat it to some degree, and it's like the American Psycho thing is interesting because you could convince me the woman that he kills in the dance club in that movie doesn't actually happen, because that to me feels very American Psycho, which I think this Vampire's Kiss was probably before the American Psycho book. Same like era.
It was either 90 or 2000. I always forget what that was.
When American Psycho the book came out, there was a big backlash against that, and that was I was too young to really know much about it, but people were pissed about that book. And I'm a big Bret Easton Ellis fan now.
I wish they made the movie the way the book was. I mean, holy.
I can say the same thing about Less Than Zero, and like Rules of Attraction I do kind of like, but yeah, American Psycho the movie, I'm not as in love with it as a lot of people are. To me, it's a little. But like, I get what you're saying. There's something good between the book and the movie that hasn't really happened,
Yep, totally. Yep, absolutely.
Did you ever see American Psycho 2 with William Shatner and Mila Kunis?
Yeah, that was pretty sick.
That's good. That's worth seeing once, but no more, no less.
So they call these types of movies. I would say American Psycho 2 is, but hilariosity. You've heard this term?
Yeah, I can kind of get what you're probably saying.
it's hilariously atrocious, like it's so bad it's good kind of thing.
Yeah, I love that shit.
Yeah, but I love those types of movies. Vampire's Kiss is like up there, but there was one that I saw recently, The Fanatic.
I don't know if I know that one.
Dude, written and directed by Fred Durst,
Oh God.
starring John Travolta
Holy shit.
and Devon Sawa from Final Destination. And
Wow.
the movie made like $2,000 in the box office. Everybody hated it.
Yeah.
It is fucking amazing. Like it
I'm
is
in.
just it's the most absurd movie ever. I highly recommend you watch The Fanatic.
I
Go
love
check
shit
it
like
out.
that. All right, I'll give you
Yeah,
one
yeah.
more recommendation. Miami Connection. Miami Connection and Hard Ticket to Hawaii are two that, if you see either of those, just like, the Miami Connection is basically a band of ninjas, and they're like a kind of a new wave band. It was an 80s movie that I think was like never released, and like they or never released back then. It was shot but never made, and they're like a new wave band, but they're also ninjas. And it's amazing. And Hard Ticket to Hawaii is just this ridiculous special effect, blowing shit up, topless, whatever, ridiculous, idiotic script that I love. So, I mean, they're both probably worth your time.
I definitely check those out. I'm always down for movies. And to tie this into the concept of making art, all of that shit has an influence. And I don't know ever how to express how it has an influence.
It all factors in.
It always brings me into a place of wanting to be creative. Like, if I watch a movie, I don't film anything. I have nothing to do with acting or anything, but watching people express and compositions. Like, you can look at the way a movie is shot the same way an album runs, like a musical album runs. So I'm just, for me, all of that kind of ties into itself. Where for me, horror movies, practical effects, despite me not really ever making, like, I make Halloween horror flash sometimes, but for the most part, like, this cartoony stuff can still have an expression that's influenced by stuff that has nothing to do with it. You know what I mean?
Exactly. Yeah, I know exactly what you're saying, man. All right, well, I can see the sun is setting where you're at, so
I know, right?
it's probably a good time to probably wrap this up. But this has been an absolute pleasure talking to you, man. It's like your art's amazing. I'm so grateful to have it on my body. Your social media stuff will be up here the whole time, so people will know where to find you. But it's been an absolute pleasure, man. Anything else you want to plug while we're here?
Just hit me up on Instagram. That's the best way to contact me. I don't have a website or anything. I'm kind of just an IG whore at this point. So go ahead and message me on there if you're interested in getting tattooed. I'm always open to doing whatever kind of crazy shit people want to do, or I got plenty of stuff that comes out of my brain if you're interested in it. And that's pretty much it, man. I'm working on a clothing brand that'll be coming out in a little while. That's basically all kid drawing style designs and stuff. So coming up next year, we'll start releasing some shirts, hats, hoodies, stuff like that. So
that's
just
really
stay
dope.
tuned. Yeah, follow me on Instagram and you'll see it.
Awesome, man. Well, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much.
All right, thank you.
Meet Ann with wings clipped, quick to flip manuscripts, cause her man went from damaged kid to damn he's rich. But she still can't stand the way he manages to never put nickels in the can for the cancer kids. Plus he cheats at cornhole and brags that he won, so she lost interest like porno after she comes. My DM started jingling, baby, as it was done. 2 seconds later I can hear the snapping of her gums. She calls me half Dodge Challenger, half Lip Gallagher. I'm happy that I luckily sat next to her in algebra. I tried to hold her down, but I just couldn't balance her between the million meetings that I keep in my calendar. Plus odds aren't too sloppy that I know why my cell is blowing up probably, but I should check just as well. Call the cops, see if I can get a hold and tell if that's copyrights Yale raising hell inside the holding cell.
Smell the smoke from the cookout. The bushes in the parks with the lookout. Fresh Prince, summertime on the radio. Throwback Friday, yo, the ladies know. Then I'm a smooth type guy. Listen, I'm the shit I need 2-time ply. Part of my soul on my head sky high. The weed smoke cover my body, so I try. Put a scent on like sunblock. Summertime's body season, so keep your gun cocked. I count beers in the cooler, cause when the fun stops, that's when the arguments happen. And the gunshots, it's summertime, backyards where we play cards. Spitting in sight for the homie